Hello, this is called Fear and Needing in China and the US, and it's part two of a two-part talk. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the first part about the economic data, and I'll just take a pause here from the talk to tell you about where these sources of information that I've gotten from. You can look on CNN, a perspective on Europe for their bulletins, or Euronews. You can also look at the CFR website, which is www.cfr.com, which is the Council for Foreign Relations website. They've got many peer-reviewed papers from the university system in the United States, and you can also look at the website of Chatham House, which obviously would be chathamhouse.com. If you're interested in any information I've talked about in the first part, a lot of the information has come from comes from my research into energy and security in Asia Pacific. And one good book to read is Kent Calder's Asia's Deadly Triangle, although it is from the 1990s, the Clinton era. And of course, relationships between the Clinton presidency era and China were quite tense over Taiwan, of course, and that is a major bone of contention that China considers it has a one China policy, that is the sovereignty of China over Taiwan. And some other good books to read would be Penguin's History of China and Penguin's History of the United States. Those are two separate books. If you want to find out about the rise of of Europe as an economic superpower, the world's biggest economy, as I've mentioned in many talks, read John McCormack's The European Superpower. Okay, right, now we get on with the talk. Also, you can read Joe Stiglitz's Globalization and Its Discontents. Now, why is it that China is so sensitive about its oil supply from the Middle East? Why it wants to take over Africa in a sense, and why it wants an economic zone in the Suez Canal region, which will be a very sensitive issue in the coming years, I think. And also why America perhaps needs China more than it fears China at the moment. As I mentioned, when the dollar falls in value, oil prices go up, because then you need more dollars to buy the oil. Okay, as we saw during the Bush era, the increase of oil supply and the decrease in the price of the dollar because of the increase in the fiat money supply by the Federal Reserve System caused oil prices to skyrocket. Now oil prices have fallen down. So was this something that was planned, or was it just riding the storm of increasing inflation? Well, to a certain extent, it's a reaction to events, so it's sort of unplanned. But economists within the Federal Reserve System would have known that if they tweak interest rates, that is the price of money here and there, that the actual worth of each dollar would fall in value, and that would then affect the oil price, since the reserve currency is linked to oil. Now this, of course, it upsets China, because China has to import most of its oil, and this also then means that there's the reserves of dollars that the Chinese have got in their banking system are worthless, so therefore they're less inclined to take on more dollars in future. Okay, they've got around about $3 trillion in dollar reserves, and so they're a bit nervous about the dollar falling even further. of course, but this helps American exports to China. Where the Chinese have really made a good economic partnership is with the European Union, because most of these goods that are produced to go to America are made with European made machine tools, which come from Germany or France or Italy. Um, America needs this relationship with China much more. It's almost like a junkie addicted to drugs. The United States is addicted to Chinese credit, but China needs the United States too. Um, if it wasn't for the United States, China would lose its biggest market. Europe does most of its trade with America or with Russia. Some of its trade is with China, and it's increasingly becoming more important. But at the moment, China's main relationship economically is with um, the United States and also with Japan, which is within the United States sphere, okay, of influence. Uh, Without the United States, Japan would be reliant on its massive navy and massive air force, but it wouldn't really compare to the Chinese, who are developing some very advanced military technologies, including stealth capability. Um, they've really revamped their entire military to make it smaller but more mobile and be able to power project more. And their frigate classes, some of their new carriers are very advanced. Okay, so um, what is the significance of the Obama visit? Well, the Obama, unlike Hu Jintao, who has real power, he is the real Chinese president. Obama's role is really more as a spokesman, and this might sound controversial, but this is actually restoring the role of the presidency to how it was originally planned, as more of a ceremonial um, position, but also as head of state, but also as the top law enforcement um, executive in the United States. But does Obama really have any power? Obama is a great orator. He's and much is made of him being the first African American president. But really, is that significant? It's what he does and what he says. And the actual effect that he has. Now, President Clinton, he did really have some real power, and there was some friction between China and America. For instance, Admiral, I think his name was Halsey, reminded China that the United States had the largest navy in the world at the time, in the mid 1990s. But things have come to a more equal relationship now, and although America would like to see more human rights, more civil rights, coming from its constitutional tradition, it's also got the realist political convention of different interest groups from the military, industrial complex, or the CFR, or the Saudi lobby, or the Israeli lobby, or American farmers, all these different lobbyists who are, in broad terms, quite nationalistic and often protectionist. And so how can you really get a free trade agreement between China? Because China, of course, is protecting its national interest. This is a difficult relationship with America, but I think America and China need each other more than they should fear one another. What Europe has to do is to coax Russia away from China, and America needs to coax China away from Russia, and that way there'll be a partnership between East and West. I think Europe would like a Central Asian Union that would be focusing around a democratic secular Iran and some democratic states like Kazakhstan, and to draw those into the European sphere, whereas the Middle East itself will probably, such as Iraq itself, will probably stay within the American sphere, while Israel and Turkey and North Africa will gradually move towards the European sphere. This leaves America with two good choices, one bad choice to make and one good choice to make. That's China or India.